If you've fallen into mortgage arrears, it's important that you speak to your lender as soon as possible. Your lender is bound by FCA guidelines to treat you fairly and to try and come to a reasonable arrangement with you to allow you to repay the arrears. If you've exhausted your options in trying to deal with your arrears with your lender, the lender then may take steps to try and recover the property by way of repossession. If you receive court papers in respect of a repossession, it is important that you take action as soon as possible. Speak to a solicitor regarding your housing situation. Even if you've had failed attempts to try and find resolution with your lender, you may still be able to remain in your property and resolve your arrears situation. Sometimes it is impossible to come to a solution with your mortgage lender to make a payment arrangement to settle your arrears. There are alternative options to deal with this, and you may wish to consider selling your property on the open market, looking at a sale and rent back scheme to a private company, or looking at one of the Scottish Government options such as the mortgage to rent scheme or the mortgage to shared equity scheme. These all have various pros and cons, and it's important that you get further information from an advisor before you take any steps. If you don't take action to address your arrears, your lender will then follow the pre-action protocols to try and repossess the property. They will write to you and ask you once again to try and come to a proposal to deal with the arrears and urge you to take independent advice to try and find resolution. Finally, if you're unable to come to this resolution, they will then take steps to repossess the property. In order to do this, they must issue you with a calling up notice. This is a legal notice to tell you that within 2 months you must pay all sums due on the mortgage or come to an arrangement to settle the arrears again. If you're unable to do it during this calling up process, your lender will then take the action to the court to try and evict you from the property and repossess it. It is important to remember that in Scotland you can't be forcibly evicted from your property without a court order, and you will not require to leave until this legal process has been completed. If you have mortgage arrears, it is important to speak to your lender as soon as possible. Your lender is bound by the Financial Conduct Authority to treat you fairly and to work with you to try and find a reasonable arrangement. They will look at your income and expenditure and try and work with you to find out what you can afford to repay back. The quicker you start to try and resolve the problem, the quicker you can find a resolution. Even if you've fallen behind by several months' payments, it's still important to take advice, as it's still possible to resolve and rectify the situation. You can speak to one of the money advisors on the Debt Navigator web chat function, and you've also got access to our legal team if you've been issued with legal notices and calling up notices.